Mr. Hill, if I understood you earlier, you said that there was a wound in the right rear of the president's head the size of your palm. I got permission from the Kennedy family in 1979 to look at the autopsy file in the National Archives, and the pictures distinctly show an entry wound that is round and small near the crown of the head, and a gaping wound involving the temporal and parietal bones. There's no gaping wound in the back of the head.
It's above the right ear. It's hard for me to describe it for people to understand it. It's right in here. That portion of the skull was gone. And about the size of this, my palm.
He was there.
But it wasn't an entry room from the rear, and it caused the entire area of that skull to lift out.
Well, leapt into history that day, but he could not get there fast enough.
When I got up on the car, Mrs. Kennedy then came up on the trunk. I got a hold of her and put her in the back seat. When I did that, he fell into her lap, but the right side of his face was up. I could see his eyes were fixed. I could see into the skull. There was a hole in his skull. And you could see that part of the brain was gone. It wasn't even there. So I just turned and gave a thumbs down to the follow-up car crew because I thought it was a fatal wound. He was dead.
Agent Lawson returns to the president's limo with 2 stretchers and witnesses the grisly scene.
Someone put a suit coat over his head.
Wynn helps lift the gravely wounded president out of the back seat.
And then we were able to get him out, put him on a gurney.
Wynn stands shoulder to shoulder with the First Lady as they watch doctors and nurses try frantically to save her 46-year-old husband's life in Trauma Room 1.
He really didn't do an awful lot. There was an awful lot they could do. This part of his head right here. This part of his head right here. You hear all the stories about how many shots there were. I mean, there were 3, and they were exactly like that. Third one closer to the second one than the second one was to the first one. Bang, bang, bang. And bang, bang, bang. And bang, bang, bang. And bang, bang, bang.
The president grabbed his neck, and then by that time there was 2 falling shots, just like a pow, pow.
The 6th floor museum in Dallas. I said, where was this guy from the grassy knoll standing? And he said, which one? He said, over the past 47 years, we've had 70 different locations, so they must have been having an assassins convention in Dallas.
We were going down this Elm Street with my door open. I heard at least 2 shots.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
I saw Youngblood jump in the back seat with the vice president. It turned out he had jumped on the vice president and pushed him down to the seat and floorboard as much as he could to, get him below the level of the car so that he'd be more protected. Of course, I'd already heard the 3rd shot, and when I first looked out to the right, I saw people dropping to the ground up on this grassy knoll there. And the sound came from the right, and I just assumed that that's where the shooting was taking place from that location.
To remove themselves really from that particular area right there.
Of course, conspiracy theories abound around the Kennedy assassination, and one theorist has Lem Johns running toward the picket fence where he thought the shots were fired, boldly seeking to apprehend the shooter or shooters. Lem says this didn't happen, that he stood in the street trying to hitch a ride.
No, absolutely not. That was not my concern or responsibility. I mean, my main thing was to help protect then the Vice President of the United States and his wife, Ms. Johnson. I was standing there waiting, and the press car convertible went by, and I was still looking, and it seemed like another minute or 2 or so, other cars started coming, but there was a press car finally, convertible, the photographers, and the man hollered out, "Hey, there's Lem, stop and pick him up."
One of the
So she was pushed back into the seat by Clint Hill, who, Secret Service agent, who, notwithstanding carousing the night before until all hours of the morning, left the running board of the follow-up car, raced ahead, jumped on the car, pushed her into the back seat.
Who decided to take off the top of the car?
The standard procedure for that particular car, SS100X, which had a number of tops. One was a bubble top, one was a solid top, one was a cloth top, was when the president was in it, provided it was not raining, or Mrs. Kennedy didn't require, because of her hair, that she be windblown, the top would always be off, not on. We never had the top on unless it was raining or a requirement for her hair. So what happened in Dallas that day was very normal. Nothing extraordinary whatsoever.
One was a solid black steel, and the other was transparent plastic. And these different roofs were put together in separate sections, so you could put them on the car if you needed to protect the president from inclement weather.
by laying wreaths at the tombs of two of Mexico's heroes, and then attending Mass at the holiest of that nation's shrines, the Basilica of Guadalupe. They are greeted by the Primate Archbishop of Mexico, Miguel Gomez, who later led a prayer in English for the full success to all efforts made during the President's visit. After Mass, the Kennedys head for the airport and then home to Washington. Last week, there was uncertainty in capital circles about the President's reception in Mexico. It turned out to be one of his greatest triumphs in personal diplomacy.
Commodore, ladies and gentlemen. Admiral Rickover wrote me a few days ago.
North Carolina. Here, hard-hitting, battle-ready units armed with the latest weapons are prepared to go into combat at any level.
We arose that morning early to go out and prepare the cars because it was raining and we were trying to make a decision whether to leave the bubble top on or off. I was driving the follow-up car right behind him.
You know, it's a good question. Get to the heart of the matter. One thing about all this controversy and that. Well, one thing that came out in these documents, is it true, were you responsible for the bubble top going on the car? I was. You were, okay. Because one of the things that makes out is that supposedly, here again, JFK said, get that, I'm quoting now, get that goddamn bubble top off unless it's raining. There was that comment.
That is not true. George Hickey and I were in Dallas the night before it happened. And it was raining. And now they were staying in Fort Worth.
Right.
We had gone to Dallas the night before with the cars. I had my own airplane, C-130. It was pouring down rain, and it's only about a 10-minute flight. It takes about 20 minutes, to get airborne and get your flight battery and come in. And right before he came in, Hickey and I had gone in and made the mom checks on the car, and I walked out the door and I said, the sun is shining, and that's it. Top stays off, because we were down there on the floor, they come loose.
Okay, so you know what? Because here again, I tell you what, these books are just unbelievable. They make it, okay, here's another thing, too, it's a related matter. They also make it sound like Forrest Sorrells ordered the bubble top off.
Who?
Forrest Sorrells.
Forrest Sorrells, I know him very well. He's in charge of Dallas. He had nothing to do with it.
Okay, very good.
I am the sole responsibility of that.
Okay, because Jim Lehrer, he came up with a book called The Boss of My Own, and he claims that he heard Forrest Sorrells.
2,000 books written on him.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh, I believe you, sir. Oh, yeah.
That's guy.
Oh, I believe it. Oh, no, believe me, I was believing 10 times, 100 times more than I would these books. I'm just saying, for the record, what it is it's unfortunate because, people are going to be reading these books instead of, taking the time to do any primary research, and unfortunately, they're going to think, oh, well, hey, that makes sense to me. Kennedy didn't want the bubble top off, and so forth, and, not that there's anything sinisterly, the bubble top wasn't even
SNG My Security. When President Kennedy first got hit and you saw that he got hit through the throat, why didn't the driver of the presidential motorcade speed off right away and hesitate not to criticize anybody from...
Can everybody hear the question in the back?
He wants to know why the driver didn't accelerate the car after the first shot.
Right.
When the president was shot with the first shot, and the first shot is free, you don't know that's going to happen. It happens. So you have to start your timing from that point on. Okay. President got hit right just below the collar, in the middle of the back, came out through the neck. The driver thought that he heard a sound. He thought he might have blown a tire. And so he didn't stop or didn't slow down. But if you ever watch the Zapruder film, you'll notice that the brake lights go on momentarily. He tapped the brakes to see if there was going to be any difference in how the car reacted. When it didn't, he realized there was another problem. About that time, there was there were other shots. So as soon as he had the chance, his reaction was to get out of there, and that's what he did.
And he was speeding up as you were racing to the back of the car. You felt it, the car.
Well, he hit the accelerator just before, as I was trying to get up on the car, and he hit it, and it caused me to slip. I took one step up and fell off, and then took about 4 or 5 more steps before I could get back up on top of the car. And that was because he had started the car accelerating forward.
With that background, I'm going to jump to Dealey Plaza. I was on the White House press bus. We were on Houston. I was looking across the plaza when we heard the shots. I remember 3 shots. And I've always had a memory, matter of fact, I've had nightmares about it, of the sunlight on Kennedy and the explosion, the car almost coming to a stop, almost to a dead stop, and then accelerating at tremendous speed. So I knew, his instinct. I knew that he had been shot, at least shot at.
But what I couldn't really believe, as someone else mentioned, was the car had, after that first shot, had come practically to a stop. And later on, in looking back on, I said I could not believe how well-trained Secret Service people reacted so slowly. I would have expected that from ordinary human beings, but I expected that they would have reacted much quicker, because I've always felt in my mind that I knew the first shot missed. I had never wavered on that, and I see now that it's getting a lot of support. But I said that from day one, that the first shot missed. I've never changed my mind on that. I felt the second shot was not a mortal blow, so I felt that had there been proper reaction time, that the man might still be alive today. I said that the shots appeared to have come from behind me and to my right, and I did say seemed to. I didn't say they did come from that direction. And secondly, I had spoken to my friends just prior to the event, suggesting that the grassy knoll would be the perfect spot for an assassin. So I said it was somewhat like self-fulfilling prophecy, that when it happened, I naturally expected to have come from where I had predicted it would come from.
The president's friend, Dave Powers, now director of the Kennedy Library in Boston, remembers talking to a grief-stricken Bill Greer, the Secret Service agent who drove Kennedy's car. What if they'd sped out of Dealey Plaza after the first shots, but before the fatal one?
I thought it always, and so did he, but Bill, all those agents were very close to us, and that they felt so bad.
If the driver of the president's car had stepped on the gas after the first 2 shots,
yes, that president would be alive today.
Last Monday marked the 30th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Next, we take you to the campus of Southern Methodist University for a conference on what journalists remember of that fateful day. Panels include journalists who were in Dallas on November 22, 1963, as they discuss efforts by radio, television, and newspapers to stay on top of the story.
Before this thing developed, the Kennedy arrival, we assigned responsibilities to certain photographers. I personally had the president as my responsibility while he was in Dallas. We had, of course, other people at certain locations. I was to get the arrival at Love Field and the parade and the luncheon.
those were my responsibility, and it is important that the president's pictures were my responsibility. So at Love, everything went fine up to the point that the whole day became great frustration for a photographic person. First thing, parades were usually handled with a flatbed truck for pool and certain selected photographic personnel to ride in front of the presidential car on presidential parades. That was canceled at the last minute. We were put in Chevrolet convertibles to ride several cars back. I think we were about 6 cars, Bob Jackson and I, and a couple of other boys were in this parade. And that put us totally out of the picture.
For firing the shot. It's most unusual, incidentally, that such a thing could happen because of the unusually tight security measures that are ordinarily taken by the Secret Service who guard the president. And normally, any vantage point, a rooftop, and windows which command a parade route are carefully scrutinized and carefully guarded, and men are usually posted on rooftops along a parade route, particularly if there is any reason at all to suppose that there might be someone in the area who would have such ideas as assassination in his mind regarding the president. These precautions, of course, are taken by the Secret Service for all presidents, as they have been for many years.
There was no formal rule, and the fact that we kept silent over it, we just felt it was something that we would keep to ourselves, because Jim Rowley, the chief of the Secret Service, on the morning of the funeral, called myself in from because I did the advance in Tampa, and called in the supervisors, and he was in agreement with what I did, but he said, you know, we just can't say that the president asked for his own assassination, so let's be quiet about this. And so we felt it was better to keep quiet until it reached the stage of being ridiculous. So.
All right.
Bodyguard, Why weren't Secret Service on the bumper that day? They were removed. You can go on internet.
That's not what he told me.
They were removed from the bumper.
That's
and
not
the
what
Secret Service guy turns to his boss
Jesse, here's my
and goes,
point.
"What?"
Jesse, here's my point.
And they took him off the bumper. Why did they change the way that, for Dallas only, the way the motorcycles were lined up? They put 4 of them way in front and the others all behind. They didn't go in the standard wedge, which was used in the 2 previous days before. But in Dallas, that changed. They got him out of the way to give a clear shooting lane.
Let me finish my point. Clint Hill, who was there and was on the back of that limo,
he wasn't on the back of it.
He jumped on the back of it.
Yeah, from a car way behind, and it took him how long to get there.
But he believed Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Now, why do you know more than he does?
Well, because of the fact there's a whole lot of information. It's so obvious when you read this book. I'll let you people be the judge. Read the book. It's so obvious. The Secret Service.
Who do you think did it?
The Secret Service protected Kennedy more after death than they did when he was alive, because they illegally took the body out of Texas. Autopsy by law should have gone on there. Lyndon Johnson, the car was a crime scene. Everybody knows tape goes around a crime scene until forensic gets through with it. Monday morning, that car was in Michigan being refurbished, already moved. No one was allowed to see the car.
Here was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway.
One of the other things I found out interestingly enough is there's no truth to this thing about supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the limousine.
No, he had nothing to do with that.
I figured that, because you know what? William Manchester makes the claim that Floyd Boring was ordered by Kennedy, and I'm quoting what it says in the book, it says, keep those Ivy League charlatans off the back of my car.
That is false.
Yes, I found that out, and I talked to William Manchester, who lives in Connecticut, about that, and he got real defensive with me. He says, all those notes are under seal, and I'm not allowing anyone, especially yourself, to look at these rules.
Who was this you were talking to?
William Manchester.
Oh, okay, I talked to William Manchester. He called me on the book.
Yeah, that book is just filled with things.
That is for the record of history, that is false, because Jerry Bain knew him very well. You're getting back. I don't know anybody now they're all gone. I've been retired so long that people came and asked me as retired.
Okay, yeah.
And Jerry Bain was a very good friend. Matter of fact, he was my boss at the White House. And Floyd Boring, he's still alive. Jerry Bain passed away last year, I believe. And Floyd Boring and JFK got along perfect.
Yeah, I can't believe you know what I'm saying? The tremendous damage these books have done, because what happened was, after the Warren Commission, everybody was waiting, I guess, during the 60s for the Manchester and Bishop books, and when people read them, they figured, hey, it must be true, it's in print, and ever since that time, people have been using those as source books, if you notice the bibliographies, and unfortunately, I can't tell you how many times that those myths have been repeated about Secret Service tension with JFK, and also the thing about the agents on the limo. And yeah, now I've got more confirmation on it.
There has never been, in my history, any more rapport with the President of the United States other than possibly Harry S. Truman.
Yeah, that's another one they said.
Harry S. Truman was a jewel just like John F. Kennedy was.
Yeah, they said the only thing that caused...
I don't really have too much faith in that.
No, it's bad. Oh, believe me, I'm not putting any stock into it. Just
any read, you can't put a hell of a lot of stock.
I'm finding that out. I tell you what, Sam, let's get that point.
This is true.
No, and I tell you what, I get people that argue with me about this. Oh, come on, Kennedy was one of the most tough to protect presidents. He always ordered the men off the back of the limo, and now I'm finding out that's not true. You know, because they say they make a big play about supposedly
President Kennedy was one of the easiest ones to ever protect, and this is why most, I would say 99% of the agents, and I'd even like to go 100, but I like to leave legally, like the lefty. Leave room for the pirate to go.
Right.
He was one of the best presidents ever to control.
Oh, okay.
Trusted every one of them.
Boy, I think this is amazing. That I guess William Manchester got away with it at the time because he was such a highly touted journalist, and he had sort of that Kennedy authorization to do this book, and it just escalated from there.
That's exactly.
Yes. Did you have any occasion to speak to Mr. Manchester? Oh, okay.
See, I wasn't involved in that at all. I had been on the trip before. February, the last vacation he had.
Oh, okay, the one down in Florida. That's right. Oh, okay, yeah. There's something relating in his book about that too. Supposedly, he makes it out like President Kennedy was real authoritarian and ordered the men off the back of a limousine.
Well, that's not true.
I didn't think that was either. Yeah, Rufus Youngblood, it was one of the things he told me. He says that don't believe Manchester or Bishop. It's very disheartening for being a young researcher looking at books and trying to sift out what's fact and what's not. And you know, the years, this is all becoming history now. It's very discouraging to find certain things that are in print that aren't true. Right. And you gentlemen were there, and you would know best. And when you were saying that, I believe you 10 times more than I would, William Manchester. Yeah. Oh, well, you were there. That's the problem. But the most alarming thing about this is, sir, is he quotes you in the book, but you're not interviewed in the book in the back section. Oh, yeah. He says that supposedly President Kennedy told you, I'm quoting, keep those Ivy League charlatans off the back of the car. That doesn't sound like... okay. Boy. I tell you, this is amazing. I didn't think so either, because it was gracious enough to indicate all his interviews at the back section of the book, but your name wasn't there. Something, how can he get a direct quote from a gentleman he never spoke to?
I never told him that.
Yeah. Hey, Oh, okay. Oh, I don't want to blame you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Boy, you really go a long way back, sir. You were involved with the attempted Blair House, the Truman. Did they ever? I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you at one time, sir. Did they ever determine? Was it you or Donald Byrd's? Well, like whoever bullet actually hit one of the men? Because it says that in one book I read.
They never did. They never did prove it. Although the guy said that the guy in the gray suit had hit him. That was Closet.
Oh, okay.
That was the only one that had a gray suit.
I tell you what, I think that, I'm not trying to swallow your head up, I think that's one of the most amazing acts of courage what you guys did that day, because never in Secret Service history has something like that happened to that grand scale. Yeah, because, you know, Dallas was just, it happened so quick, and that was not, they never returned any gunfire, but, you know, that was a true test of, because even in the Reagan assassination attempt, no Secret Service men fired a gun. So actually, this was the first time, like the only time maybe, ever in Secret Service history where that's happened. Yeah, but you know what? One thing I discovered, speaking of documents that came out, I was aware of this before, but Stuart Stott was also in Dallas. He was at the trademark.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, oh yeah. It says, oh yeah, according to this document, it says David Grant, Stuart Stott, a man by the name of Richard Johnson.
Right.
Boy, what's his other name? I can't make. Andy Berger.
Right.
Okay. It has Dennis Halterman, but it's scratched out.
That's right. He passed away.
Oh, okay. Yes, these documents came out piecemeal, and they're really hard to read.
How he passed away. Actually, I doubted back he was there. Although I should know he was there because he died shortly thereafter.
You know, were you involved in any of the planning of the Texas trip? Did you,
Well, no, I was involved in that,
Oh, okay. Did you at least, did you, give out assignments and so forth? Okay. Because, check this TMB sometime. I'm finding this out because in this less than 5 minutes of conversation, you've knocked out a lot of stuff that's in print that I was not taking as the gospel, but I know other people have. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that repeated where President Kennedy told the agents, I guess yourself and other people, get these men off my limousine, don't do this. Okay.
Very nice man.
Yeah, it's...
Never interfered with us at all.
That's what I thought. You know what, they also said that at the time, you might remember this, that supposedly Mr. Truman, that he was one of the toughest to secure because of his Monday morning walks. Oh, isn't it? Oh, okay, because they said that was like a security man's nightmare because after a while, it was like people were starting to become aware that he went on Monday morning walks. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, basically, one final question. Did you know about supposedly the Skin the Line of Fire movie is supposed to be the dramatization of Clint Hill? Did you know about that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, supposedly this movie, it's played by Clint Eastwood. It's supposed to be like just a composite character of Clint Hill 30 years later. Yeah. That's pretty interesting because when I saw the movie, I could see there was references to Dallas and some other things. And it was pretty, because in the movie he says that he went on to guard Mrs. Kennedy, and that's exactly what Clint Hill did. And then it also makes mention of Spiro Agnew, and I checked in one of the books, and sure enough, he guarded Spiro Agnew during when he was vice president. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess to summarize, it's very tough for young people, historians, whatnot, to check these documents. It's a shame because unless you speak to the principals, there's these books. I get tickets from your reaction, sir, that you weren't aware of some of these things in print.
Well, see, for years I haven't read any of this stuff because I know it's all crap.
That about sums it up. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate your time, sir. You really cleared up a lot of mysteries. I'm glad to have everything clarified here. Great. All right, so hey, take care now.
I will.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, definitely. Take the one from Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Yeah, definitely. Take the one from Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Kennedy and say that he didn't want anybody on the back of the car. See, that's exactly what I was saying. The one more. That's exactly
so? So maybe some authors have taken leaps of faith and have based things on their conclusions rather than going to primary sources. So that's a big thing that's been dispelled just in a couple days here. Because that's what I think. I didn't think it's, like I said, this footage of the trip to Berlin in June of 1963. In fact, ironic, I'm talking to you and you were sitting in the front seat of the limo. There's film footage of that. And there's two agents hanging onto the back handholds. And, you know what? Most of the time, when you were in his positions and you were sitting in the front seat and it was what Bill Greer was typically the driver. You were part of the detail went back into at least the Truman era?
It started with Roosevelt before his third inauguration.
Oh, really?
41, January 41.
Oh, okay. I didn't think you went back that far. Okay. Because Stu Manchester's book, I think he alludes to the fact that you were around during the Truman administration. But okay. And you know what, out of curiosity, how long were you in the service? Yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, so you were around until what, early part of the Nixon years, or?
No. It's just Johnson's first full term of his inauguration. Before I think I transferred in January of 65.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, you know what, during the House Select Committee hearings in the mid-70s, something I was surprised about is you and Mr. Floyd Boyd became inspectors, and I understand that you considered that a demotion? You weren't? Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm trying to clear up some of that. Well, maybe it's apparently just some disinformation out there. Rufus Youngblood, are you familiar with this book? Oh, okay. He came out with a book roughly in the mid-70s, and he mentions the fact that you and Ms. Well, fact I put in quotes, that you and Mr. Boring became inspectors in the mid-60s. Maybe that was a bad terminology then, huh?
Right now at Longhorn Steakhouse.
Rufus Youngblood, I guess it was,
Still around somewhere.
yeah, but he was on 60 Minutes about 20 years ago, but they showed an update last year. Him and his wife visited Dealey Plaza, and he finally got over, I don't know why he ever felt guilty about it in the first place, I guess.
Everyone felt that. The job to protect the president, that's all. Everyone felt that.
Yeah, that's true. I can see it. Well, you know what, I mean, in that short span of time, that would have been tough to have done anything, you know what I mean?
Well, I know that's what you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car or something. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death.
You know what I mean?
Well, I know that's what you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car or something. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death.
This is the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. Keep in mind, the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. This is an amazing letter he wrote me in January 12th, 2004. I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. After all, foothold and handholds were built into that particular vehicle. I am sure it would have been on a case-by-case basis depending on the event, intelligence, threats, etc. Keep in mind, ostensibly, officially, allegedly, there were no threats found in Dallas. Jerry Bain, a special agent in charge of the White House detail, as it was known then, Presidential Protective Division currently, would have been privy to that type of info more than I. See my other video where Bain adamantly denies that President Kennedy ever ordered the agents off the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. I am certain that agents were on the back on certain occasions. Again, I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. This totally debunks the Kennedy detail. Here's the fateful Tampa motorcade of November 18th, 1963. This is Congressman Sam Gibbons. There's JFK, Senator Smathers, Agent Don Lawton, Agent Chuck Saburl, Agent Floyd Boring, Agent Bill Greer. But let's focus on Congressman Gibbons. What did Congressman Gibbons have to say about the whole notion of JFK allegedly ordering the agents off the car in Tampa? Here's what he told me in this letter dated January 15th, 2004, years before the Kennedy detail saw the light of day. I rode with Kennedy every time he rode. I heard no such order. As I remember it, the agents rode on the rear bumper all the way. Kennedy was very happy during his visit to Tampa. Sam Gibbons. This is an amazing letter from Dave Powers, arguably JFK's best friend for years and the former curator of the JFK Library. September 10th, 1993. Okay. Also, unless they were running along beside the limo, the Secret Service rode in a car behind the president, so no, they never had to be told to get off the limo. Also, unless they were running along beside the limo, the Secret Service rode in a car behind the president, so no, they never had to be told to get off the limo. That destroys the Kennedy detail right there, and the whole notion of the O'Donnell Powers staff notion too. This is a fantastic book written by Helen O'Donnell called A Common Good, The Friendship of Robert F. Kennedy and Kenneth P. O'Donnell. There's Kenny O'Donnell. There's Helen O'Donnell, his daughter. This book, much of the material in this book has been gathered from the private tapes of my father, Kenneth P. O'Donnell. Okay, so she has her vivid memory in the private audio tapes of my father, Kenneth P. O'Donnell. When I wrote to her, really sweet lady, Dear Vince, thank you for your friend requesting your note, blah, 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 blah. Suffice to say that you are correct. JFK did not order anybody off the car. He never interfered with my dad's direction on the Secret Service, and this is much backed up my dad's tapes. JFK did not order anybody off the car. He never interfered with my dad's direction on the Secret Service, and that is much backed up in my dad's tapes. I think and know from the tapes, Dallas always haunted him, meaning O'Donnell, because of the might-have-beens. But they involved the motorcade route. He constantly questioned his own decision to take the motorcade in that direction, but he never blamed the Secret Service. The important thing, JFK did not order anybody off the car. This is much backed up in my dad's tapes. Kenny O'Donnell, you've been vindicated. The Kennedy detail, that book by Gerald Blaine, the Kennedy detail has been thoroughly debunked. This is Assistant Special Agent in Charge number 3 Agent Roy Kellerman, ostensibly the agent in charge of the Texas trip. Ostensibly, but it was really Floyd Boring. Roy Kellerman died in March 1984. Here's his widow, who, by the way, passed away in 2006. This is what she said to me in 1997 in a letter. I spoke to her a couple times, too. Dear Mr. Palomera, the answer to your question is no. Roy did not say that JFK was difficult to protect. This is Rocky Stone of the Fort Worth Police Department on November 22, 1963, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in nearby Dallas, Texas. Mr. Stone has some very important things to say. Unfortunately, the audio is very poor. This is NBC news footage, again, very rare. But Mr. Stone says that President Kennedy was very cooperative with the Secret Service and always went by their decisions. This is very important for that reason, and here it goes.
We had nothing but praise for President Kennedy and his manner in which he felt about the Secret Service men. They said that by far he was more considerate of them and their feelings than any of the previous presidents they had been take care of. They said that he always went by their decisions.
There it was. He always went by their decisions. They said he always went by their decisions. These late-day revisionists like Gerald Blaine and Clint Hill and others try to say it was the other way around, but by law, and it's even in books by Chief U.E. Bauman written before the assassination, Associated Press articles written before the assassination, other books and articles written before the assassination, the Secret Service was the only boss the President of the United States really had, to quote Harry Truman. And here it is once again, what he says. And again, it's a little bit of the lead up. This is the Kennedys leaving Fort Worth. Waving goodbye. And again, this is poor audio, unfortunately. But it's coming again. Officer Stone of the Fort Worth Police Department. This is worth hearing again. And again, this is what the Secret Service told him.
We have nothing to praise for President Kennedy and his manner in which he felt about the Secret Service men. They said that by far he was more considerate over under their feelings than any of the previous presidents they had been take care of. They said that he always went by their decisions as if to protect him, and that he was very considerate of their thoughts, that he seldom, if ever, tried to enjoy.
He always went by their decisions. Here it is.
President Kennedy and his manner in which he felt about the Secret Service men. They said that by far he was more considerate over under their feelings than any of the previous presidents they had been take care of. They said that he always went by their decisions as if to protect him, and that he was very considerate of their thoughts, that he seldom, if ever, tried to do anything that they thought was against the rules for his protection. They stated that President Kennedy referred to them as his boys, and there were times when they were more surprised than people that the President always looked around to see where his boys was at, so that at a moment's notice they were able to be at his side and get him out of his side when they thought that he was possibly getting dangerous.
Here it is one more time.
They stated that President Kennedy referred to them as his boys, and there were times when they were more surprised.
Actually, here it is one more time. Okay, here it is one more time.
Nothing but praise for President Kennedy and his manner in which he felt about the Secret Service men. They said that by far he was more considerate over under their feelings than any of the previous presidents they had been take care of. They said that he always went by their decisions as if